Good morning from Vietnam. Good afternoon to you, Stan. Thanks a lot for spending your afternoon on December and sharing your stories with our global audience. And on behalf of the listeners around the world, we would like to say thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Rod. Thank you for having me.
And I wish that I knew you 10 years earlier. So when you came to Vietnam back in 2014, I'll be able to take you out for a cup of coffee or, maybe have some beers together. Right?
Well, maybe I'll get there one day in the future. Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Yes. And because you came to our country already, you saw the people here, the culture here, and it's very honor for our people to have you to do a little introduction about who you are and the work you are doing. So can you share that for our audience, please?
It's been a long, winding path, but my work has been a combination of applying the principles of human behavior and the principles of sound business practices. My objective in my work has been, through all of its different forms, to create a better performing organization where people enjoy being there. And it's not one or the other. It has to be both, in my view. So my background is rather eclectic. I have a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in organizational psychology. I emphasized physiological or neuroscience. And then I started my time in the world of corporations in human resources and safety. And then I moved to 3 different organizations with that HR emphasis, but I was really an operational person at heart. I had worked myself through school in a whole variety of jobs, one of which was running a salmon processing plant in Alaska. I did that for 3 summers, 3 seasons. So I'm more operationally oriented. Well, then I went into manufacturing in one of the employers where I ran a 120-person back end for large-scale integrated circuit production. And then I went to a biotech company where I did quality assurance for biopesticides, facilities, and HR. And then I got fired from that company. This was about 15 years into my work life. But I got fired because I didn't fit in the ethics and culture of the company. And so that was my first real exposure to how a culture can spit you out if it's not a good match. Well, I had 2 choices at that point in 1989. I could start my own business, or I could look for work outside of San Diego where I live, because there were no jobs here at the end of the Cold War. The entire economy shrank in San Diego. So I decided to start my first company. It was an organizational consulting firm. It grew to be one of the largest in Southern California. I also started a biotech company for diagnostics and a software company. Software company died after 2 years of partneritis. I just had the wrong people with me. The biotech company lasted for 13 years. We sold the technologies at the end of that time, and my consulting business continued to grow. I eventually was acquired by a large accounting and national consulting company called McCladrey. I stayed with them for 5 years, running the Southern California offices of the consulting wing of the company. We had about 40 people. We were doing, at that time in the early 2000s, about $6-7 million a year in revenue in consulting. Well, after 5 years, I fulfilled my obligations, so I decided to leave McCladrey and start a private equity company. So I gathered 21 investors together with me, and we, over a period of 11 years, invested in 6 businesses. And then we managed those businesses until we exited the investment company in 2020.
Wow. Stan, you yeah, You
a little
introduce.
more. During that time, WD-40 was a consulting client of mine. And when we stopped investing in new businesses in 2011, I was planning on scaling back my life. Well, Gary Ridge and I were in London on a business meeting. And at that meeting, after a couple of beers, he said, why don't you come to work for WD-40 now that you're no longer adding companies to the investment firm? And I said, I don't know how to be an employee anymore. By that time, I was an entrepreneur for 23 years. And he said, I don't need an employee, I need a business partner. And I love WD-40 because it, like me, and Gary specifically, had the same values. He wanted a place where people love to work and accomplish great things. And so I said, this is something I need to spend my time doing. So I joined WD-40 Company. I headed up their global HR function. And I thought it was going to be about a 3 to 5 year assignment. It turned into 9. So I left WD-40, I retired, I had trained up my team, we had brought in a successor, and I left them in January of 2021. So almost 4 years ago. So now I'm consulting with 6 or 8 clients. I'm an executive coach. I do advisory work. I serve on 2 advisory boards, and WD-40 is still a client.
Wow. Wow. Stan, you have a phenomenal career journey that you introduced to us in, I counted here, is about 4 minutes time. And it's not fair for our audience. And this conversation is to examine the journey that leading to the phenomenal journey that you have. Okay. So let's travel time together with me, shall we?
All right.
All right. All right. So Stan, when I was little, I dream of become an astronaut and flying onto the moon, right? And life didn't give me any opportunity to to pursue that dream or to do the things that close to the dream. Except recently I interviewed one of the 12 men that ever walked on the moon. His name is General Charlie Duke. That is an honor. So for you, Stan, when you was little, what was your dream about the works that you're going to perform, the things, the life that you're going to have in the future, though?
Well, this is quite the coincidence because my original goal and why I was going to a master's program in organizational psychology is I wanted to join the space program. I also wanted to be an astronaut. And in fact, it wasn't until my first child came along that I decided to put that objective to the side. And from that point forward, with a growing family, my objective with my work was to provide for my family. But the longer I was in it, and especially when I was fired in 1989 and decided to start my own company, that was the moment where I said, I'm going to create the kind of company that I want to work in. I want a place where I'm proud to be, where my values fit, and where I can create an economic opportunity for others, but also a quality of life.
Wow. Wow. I want to bring you to that moment, the moment that you make a commitment to create the life that you want and the life that people, for the people around you, right? So tell us, because people get fired and they're looking for another job but you say, okay, I'm not going to work for anyone else. I'm going to create a company, your own company. I'm going to create an environment, a culture that bring good things for people and for yourself. So bring us to that moment. What how was you back then? What were you thinking back then?
Well, I had put together a business plan for a consulting firm because I knew that at some point, whatever company I was in was going to go through its ups and downs. So I was thinking about doing that anyway. but I didn't want to risk my income for my family.
Mm.
When I got fired, then it was no longer a risk. I had enough savings and enough ability to borrow that I could pay the family's bills for 1 year. And my reasoning was that I'm going to go 6 months, do everything I can to be successful in this new venture. If at 6 months I still have a year left, then I'll keep going. And I never stopped doing it that way.
Mm.
I always kept going depending on how far in the future, at least a year, I could see that I could provide for myself first and my family, but then also for my employees. I wouldn't hire an employee if I didn't see that I could support them for at least a year. So I just kept doing that year after year after year. And we kept growing.
So who was the first person you talked to about your business plan of 6 years and then another 6 years, 6 months, another 6 months, another 6 months?
Well, I didn't really have anybody to talk to at the time. My first wife was not interested in business. She didn't really understand the risk and the challenge or what I had to do to be successful. My employees, at first, I didn't share that methodology with them until I was about 4 years into it. And that's when I decided that employees need to be a part of the decisions. They need to know all the information. So it was in 1993 when I started using what has been called the open book management method.
Mm.
You may have heard of that. It
Yes.
was created in the 1980s, and it really started with Hewlett-Packard bringing the methods of quality circles and employee engagement from Japan back to the US. Are you familiar with Edwards Deming?
Yes.
So Edwards Deming was sent to Japan to help in the reconstruction after World War II. Well, his theories weren't accepted by businesses in the United States until they saw it working in Japan.
Uh-huh.
Then it started to get some traction in the United States with companies like Hewlett-Packard. And then Springfield Remanufacturing, Jack Stack, he took it to another level. And he created an environment where information was transparent. Everyone was invited to make decisions and to provide improvements, and they shared in the outcome. Well, before I started my company, I had visited Hewlett-Packard. I'd learned about Jack Stack. There was an organization nationally called the Businesses for Social Responsibility, which has now changed into the other forms. So it was 93 when I brought my employees into the discussion, and then also started to seek out like-minded fellow CEOs.
Wow. Wow. So back then, there's a lot of theory also on the rise. So why did you pick the idea of open book management and have conversation with your employees, Stan?
Well, it starts from some fundamental belief I have that every human being deserves respect. Every human being has something to offer, and every human being can understand the principles of business. Oftentimes, people talk in business terms that are designed to hide information.
Mm.
Like accountants speak in one language, venture capitalists speak in another language. But there's a simpler way of describing those principles in each of those professions that anyone can understand. So I wanted a place where everyone was treated with respect, invited to participate, and was only judged on the basis of what they could contribute. not on their size, shape, color, religion, language, nothing else.
Mm.
And one reason why I believe that is because I grew up poor. I didn't have money when I was growing up. We moved around a lot. We didn't have much. We lived in trailers, not in homes. So when I became a young man, I started out on the bottom rung of society. Not as bad as perhaps Black Americans who had an additional challenge, but probably the lowest rung that a white boy could experience. So when I started leading others and building companies, I never forgot where I came from.
Wow. You mentioned one thing is really, really important, and it's a good reminder for leaders around, around us is never forget, where we're coming from, So when you go up into the top of the ladder, don't forget about, how everything started, right? So that when we have that reminder in ourselves, then we'll be more generous to help others. We'll be more empathetic to support the people that we lead in, and things like that would help, create a better place for a lot of people, under our wings. Stan, bring me back to one thing that you mentioned in 1989, that when you starting to have, your first company, and you said that you would do everything that you could to keep the company successful for the 6 months so that you can continue to expand it. So bring us back to that moment when Stan, became the first entrepreneur himself. Whatever that you could do, what was on?
Well, the first thing was that I realized there's no clock or calendar anymore. So I was working every day of the week and about 70 to 80 hours a week. And it was just me. And I did have a partner at the time who ended up leaving. He didn't want to work that hard. So then when he left, it was just me. And then it was me and a part-time assistant. And then it was me and a full-time assistant and one other consultant. And then it was me, and I grew slowly over the first few years. But I would get up at 5:30 in the morning. I'd be at the office at 7 a.m. I'd come home at 6 o'clock. I'd eat dinner. And when everybody was in bed, I'd go back to the office and start working again from about 9 o'clock until 1 o'clock in the morning. Sleep for 5 hours, get up and do it again.
Wow. Wow. One of the things that the people are afraid of running their own business is because of the fear inside of them, right? The imposter syndrome, and like you back then, you were new kid on the block, and then have to compete with a lot of giant companies already established in the consulting business, right? So it's really hard for a client to put their trust and their business advice on the hand of Stan. So I bet that there must be a lot of challenges along the way for you to persuade people and have them trust. So bring us to the moment that you had your first client, okay? Because that is everything. That's your confidence and the journey of success. So tell us, how that happened to Stan and your business.
Well, ironically, my first client was the company that fired me.
Wow. Tell us more, please.
Well, when they fired me, they didn't have anyone to replace me. So I said to the CEO, well, I'm starting a consulting business. If you want me to do some project work, I'd be happy to do that while you're looking for someone. And he said, okay. And then the next client was the insurance agency that had sold us our company's benefits, who I happened to know needed some advice. So now I had two clients.
It's amazing, Stan. Yeah. Yes, please.
And then I would go out into the community and attend business events, and I would simply get to know people they would ask me at some point what I did. And I would tell them, and then I'd shut up. Then they asked me a question about what I did. I'd answer it and shut up. And then they kept pulling it out of me until it was clear that they had some need that might be something I could help them with. So then I'd offer them a 1 hour free consultation. And if I thought I could help them, I put together a proposal, and I always guaranteed our work. I said, if you're not happy with the services, I'll refund your money entirely and cancel any outstanding invoices. No questions asked.
Wow.
And I give that guarantee today.
Wow. How did you come to the confidence that you can guarantee that the client will be totally satisfied with the service provided? And if it's not, then you're going to refund 100% to them. So that's free of works right there, if it failed.
This is where my psychology comes in. Because if I didn't guarantee them the work and I provided them work that they didn't like, I would naturally want to defend my work, right?
Mm.
So we'd be in an argument. And at the very best, I would have a dissatisfied client and a poor referral. But if I committed ahead of time that they would be satisfied, then I know that I would do everything I could to make sure they were satisfied. Which means be clear about what they expected. Be clear about what I could provide. Check in often with them about whether or not I was serving their needs. Ask for feedback frequently. And those are methods that I employ today.
Mm.
And so did my company for many years. So psychology is commit to a satisfied customer first. Take that off the table. That relieves their sense of risk, and it puts the control over the relationship in my hands.
Mm. Wow. Wow. And when your clients heard about that, and I don't think that back in the 1989, there's a lot of companies out there that dare to put 100% satisfaction in services, and then if not, then the money is fully refunded. So when they heard about that, Stan, what did they say to you?
They were a little skeptical, but I made sure that I looked them in the eye. I put it in writing with my signature on it so that there was no question. And then there were times when I had to give money back. I had a list of about 6 companies after about 10 years that I had given some amount of money back to and who were happy with that. So I included them in my reference list. Here are all the satisfied customers. Here are the ones that weren't so satisfied, and they can talk about how they were treated when they weren't satisfied.
Wow. So it's very transparent in terms of the service level to all your clients.
That's right.
Wow. Wow.
Because when you're giving advice, they only have your word. They have to trust you. So you have to demonstrate trustworthiness in every way possible. Show up on time or ahead of time. Have the project done when you said it was going to be done.
You mentioned that when somebody asks you something and then you say something about who you are and then you shut up, right? And then what you do and you say something about it and you shut up. So you mentioned it, there's an important power in shutting up right there. So why is it?
Well, because there are different kinds of selling. The kind of selling where you just barrage someone with the features and benefits and when can I get on your calendar? This is the best thing since sliced bread. That type of overwhelming selling can break down resistance for some people, or it could raise resistance with most people. And I I don't feel comfortable doing that. I don't like badgering people. Then there's another way of marketing yourself, is you go where you're invited. So I know that if somebody asks me a question and I answer it as accurately but as succinctly as possible, if they're not interested in what I do for a living, they're not going to want to listen to anything else anyway. But if they ask a question, it means they do have some interest. So I call it pull marketing. I let them pull me into the relationship as fast as they wish to be in it. Now that takes some skill in deciding what to say. If they say, what do you do? You have to have a description that is accurate, but not the full resume. Here's everything I do. So for example, you ask me what I do. I'm a business psychologist. That connects quality of human life with performance of the business. I shut up. Now, if that intrigues you, you're going to say, well, how do you do that? I say, well, it comes in a variety of forms. Let me give you just one example. Let's talk about compensation. Compensation is a business decision because it's the single largest cost of a company, but it's also a matter of human motivation. So how you apply compensation can either increase your employee's motivation or decrease it. Then I shut up. The next question might be, well, how can it decrease her? And so you just get pulled into the conversation as much as they're interested.
Stan, give me 1 minute in here. Can you go to Google and do a quick internet speed test? Because the image from your end is right now is not in a very good quality. And I'm gonna cut this part out, but let's do the test to see what's going on with the internet connection, okay?
I'll do the internet speed test now.
Yes.
I gotta find one here. Okay.
Normally I go to speedtest.net. My internet is very, very fast here, so I'm not sure what's going on. The quality.
It asked me to create an account.
No. Go to Google and search for internet speed test and see if anything that can open.
Okay, hang on a minute. Okay, testing now.
Now I can see you very clear, but a couple of minutes ago, then the quality of the image is not good.
Right now, the download speed is 192 megabytes per second. It didn't tell me what the upload speed is. Right, here we go. Upload speed is 1.6 megabytes per second.
1 point something.
1.6.
1.6 is very, very slow. That's why the image is impacting. So your download speed is really, really good, but the upload speed is having some issue. Because my is like 200 megabit per second for upload, and for download it's 150. So what happened here? How can we improve the uploading speed for your end, or maybe you can restart the router and reconnect?
Well, the router is hardwired in. I'm not on Wi-Fi.
Oh, so you're on the direct cable.
Right.
Interesting.
It could be the time of day because everybody in this neighborhood is on their computer right now.
Because the first part of the
reschedule to
the first part of the conversation was really in good quality of images, and we want to keep it like that. Do you have a 5G network on your phone that you can switch on and then connect onto the?
Switch it to my phone?
Yes. No, I mean turn on the Wi-Fi from your phone and then use your laptop to connect into that Wi-Fi. Normally, sometimes it will help the situation better if you have a high-speed internet on Wi-Fi on your cell phone.
I have 5G and 2 bars out of 4. So
if 5G, then it should work just fine.
All right. Well, I'll hang on just a second.
Sure.
On my router. My router is locked for some reason. That's not going to work. My Wi-Fi, it does this once in a while. It locks me out. It makes me wait 4 minutes before I can open
No worries then. As of now, the quality of the image and the sound is good. So let's continue. Okay, and if it because sometimes it just take a minute or so to release the bandwidth from your end. So it is like a clock, huh? So it's good now. Okay. So let's restart. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So where were we? In terms of the question,
we were talking about my marketing method where
yes, we were shut up. Yeah. Yes. All righty. So let me ask the question again. So Stan, earlier when you said about, you know, in a meeting and then somebody will ask you about who you are and then you tell your name, then you shut up, and then if they ask you about the works you're doing, you share a little bit about that and you shut up. So that definitely a power behind, you know, quietness right there. So share with us, why did you choose that approach?
Because I didn't like to sell people on my services. I wanted them to find that I was the right solution for them. So they would only find that out by being curious about what I do. And the only reason they would be curious is if they had a need or an interest in the topic themselves. Sometimes it was just they were curious, but more often than not, it's because they were a leader in a company struggling with business and people and needed help. So if they're curious, it means they have a need. If I can solve that need for them, I'll explore it with them. But I'm not going to push myself on people.
Wow. So didn't you afraid that because if you're not sharing enough information, they're gonna go to somewhere else and looking for somebody else that share information that might trigger the needs that they've been having inside of them and find and look for those people for businesses instead of you?
That's possible, but I don't believe that if someone else wins, I lose. I think there's something I learned early on in my entrepreneurial life is opportunity is everywhere. There is just countless opportunities. If I wasn't the right person for that company, that's okay. If we didn't connect for some reason, they went somewhere else, that's not a problem. My job is to put myself into the community often enough that enough people know of me. So we would send out newsletters that was just information sharing, valuable information for any business leader related to people and business, without ever putting an advertisement in it. All we did is put our company name and our contact information. And we got lots and lots of inquiries from those newsletters. I would give free talks. Myself and an attorney used to give, we call it the balance point, between the law and how to lead in a practical way. And we would invite people to come. They cost them $10 for the donuts.
Mm.
And whenever we did one of those, I would always pick up at least 1 or 2 clients.
Wow.
So you know how when you go to the store and they're giving away free samples?
Mm-hmm.
That's all we did. Free samples.
Stan, you have a very abundant mindset, and that's very important for us to, to build that mindset inside of us. So we see the opportunities are endless everywhere, right? And I'm curious because you grew up in the environment that is that's, you say earlier, is poor, and there's a lot of lacks in there, right? And normally people growing up in that environment will have a different perspective about life, will not be able to see things that abundant as should be and stuff. So where did you find that mindset for you, Stan?
Boy, that's a good question. I think it probably started when I was in wrestling in high school.
Mm.
I was wrestling, and I didn't have a killer instinct, but I was skilled. So whenever I would pin someone, their back is to the mat, I felt terrible. Why do I have to overpower this person? Why can't we just be equal? So I didn't like being a dominant person over someone else.
Ah.
I didn't like those. I didn't like yelling at people. I didn't like fighting people. So I liked competition where someone wasn't being physically harmed, like tennis or ping pong. And I also didn't take it too seriously. So I think that's where I started thinking about, for me to win, I don't want someone else to suffer.
Mm.
And in my life, I've never found that to be necessary.
Mm. Wow. For the 23 years of running as an entrepreneur, right? And I note down in here that you've been doing like a biotech company, software company, equity investment, and consulting. So very different businesses. Where did you find the strength, the know-how, and the people to work with you to run in different, like aspects of business everywhere like this?
Well, I've always been able to learn pretty quickly,
Mm.
and I've had an interest in lots of different topics. I'm fascinated by life. So there isn't a subject that I'm not curious about. And when you're curious about something, it's easier to learn it. So I was a manufacturing manager making large-scale integrated circuits. I didn't know anything about how integrated circuits were made.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a book on integrated circuits, how they're made. And I worked with my team, and I told them, look, I don't know anything about what you guys do. So I'm here to take the impediments out of your way. Tell me what you need. Tell me what's getting in the way of you doing your job better, and I'll work on those.
Mm.
So I learned as I was helping them, and I trusted them. And they really appreciated that.
Wow.
But yeah,
You,
I've had to learn biotech. I've had to learn something, not everything, but something about a lot of things. I taught myself business because I didn't go to business school. And I continued to learn about psychology as time went on. So I would say this to an entrepreneur: you've got to be interested in the details, and you've got to be interested in every functional specialty in a business. Otherwise, your company will be stolen from you by your investors. And when you get to the point where it's succeeding beyond your interest or abilities, you're going to be out.
mm,
And if that's okay with you, that's fine. But if you want to be with your company for a long period of time, you got to be a student of business and every aspect of it.
wow. So teach me and teach our audience, what can we do to keep that curiosity stays with us and expands a little, like a little longer, a little more every day?
If you're not already curious about a lot of things, I don't have any advice that'll change that.
Mm.
Once you become curious, then there are some things you can do to stay educated or be educated without having to go back to school. And that's read, find a mentor, learn from others. Every time I would interview someone for a job, I would learn something more about their profession. I could ask them anything I wanted. So, well, how does that work? And what do you do if this happens? And if you were to ask 10 CFO candidates how they did cash flow analysis, and 8 of them said the same thing, well, then I think I learned something there.
Ah. So it's something innate inside of you already there, isn't it?
I think so.
All righty. And so if we want to have that switch turn on for the people, and then help them to ignite that curiosity inside of them, or like, because earlier you say that if we are not curious, then there's nothing that you could have. So if we can build that switch for the people, what should we do? In your knowledge, in your consulting over the years, your work with many people, what can we build that switch for them?
I think the switch you're talking about is the willingness to put forth effort to work.
Mm.
Because people who are curious, but they don't want to investigate, they might just want someone to tell them the answer. What's 4 plus 4? Well, it's 8. Well, that's not the kind of curiosity that leads to learning and independence. But if they said, I wonder what 4 plus 4 is, I think that's a base 10 number system. I'm going to look up base 10 number systems and the function of addition. How does that work? So if you're willing to do the work, then curiosity translates to accomplishment. But if you're curious and you're not willing to work hard, put in the time, do the hard things, then nothing I could say would change that. The switch is, how hard are you willing to work to have the experiences and achieve the goals that you have?
What you say is very simple, and people know. People know that hard work is required to get them the experience, the skills, and the result that that might come in the future. But they want instant gratification, instant results, right? So what's wrong with us? For what we know and doing is totally, a huge gap in between like that, Stan.
Well, it's not absolute, but there is a high correlation between how easy you've had it before you're an independent adult. and your willingness to work hard. There are exceptions to that. I know several people in my life who grew up with upper middle class families. They didn't have to work themselves through school. Their parents paid for it. Their parents bought them their first car. You know, they didn't have to work that hard for their material well-being, and they're still working hard. But for the most part, if you don't have a difficult upbringing, you haven't learned resilience. You haven't learned how to suffer and overcome the deficits that you faced.
Wow.
So I think there's that. And your country, it went through terrible times. And then out of that came a population, a generation of people who knew how to work hard, who started with almost nothing and had nothing but opportunity in front of them. And that's what created the place where your country is now. I would worry that if life gets too easy, like it has been in the United States, that your generation coming will not have that same work ethic and gratitude for even the smallest of gifts.
Wow. So you mentioned the word resilience in here, and I just want to pick up your own definition of resilience, because I believe that being resilient is important. And for us to face with, setbacks and everything, that is something significantly will happen in everybody's life, right? So what is resilient in your own definition, Stan?
I think it's when someone faces hardship, a physical injury, an economic calamity, their house burns down, loss of a loved one. And their first response to that, after they experience the emotion, is, what do I do about it? If they experience emotion, the sadness, the loss, the anger, the frustration, and they allow themselves to feel that for maybe a day, and then they go to, what do I do about it? It's the action-oriented person who is resilient. They don't give up. They respond to it. They might be in a very bad place on Monday, but by Wednesday or Friday, they're making plans, they're taking action. They're getting out there and pursuing the work that they need to do to resolve the problem, if they can at all.
Wow. So it seems to me, when I'm trying to connecting the dots backward into your life, right? You grow up in the environment is pretty challenging, and perhaps that's is how it built the resilient muscle inside of Stan since he was little. So if you can travel back to time and tell that little Stan about a phenomenon journey that he's going to have in the future. So what is a few things that you're going to tell that little Stan about the future to build hope for that young Stan?
I would probably tell him that whatever he thinks about himself at that moment in time, as a young person, as a child, that it's not an accurate feeling. Because when I was very young, I didn't have a lot of positive communication. Nobody was telling me, you can do anything. People were telling me, you can't do anything. So I would tell that young person not to believe the people around them and to trust your own strength.
So where did you find a positive message to apply to yourself every day back then?
Well, I had a grandfather who was more an impact in my life than my own father. And he was a very positive influence on me. He didn't preach to me. He didn't try to make me feel better. He just spent time with me. We just shared time together. And I learned about his life, and we went fishing, and we just did things together. So he made me feel like I was worth his time.
Wow. Wow. I am on a separate quest to interview 50 good and amazing people on the topic of wisdom. One of the reasons for that is to have, understanding what wisdom is in different, perspectives. And the second one is to have to create the bridge between generations, uh, uh, different generation in terms of the belief, the ideas, and the wisdom between the two generations. And you and your grandfather was able to build that bond, and for you to listen to, the wisdom that he shared to you, and for him to listen, and to spend time to listen to you. So Stan, what did you guys do together that can help bridge that gap besides just spend time or listening? What else happening inside the chemistry?
We spent a lot of time fishing. We would
Mm,
walk to the lake near his house, and we would spend hours fishing at the lake and just chatting and fishing and enjoying the peace.
mm,
And we talk on the way back. He was a baseball fan, so we would gather in front of the little black and white television, and we would watch baseball, and he would tell me all about the game and who the players were, and uh, something we shared.
wow.
He was a gardener. He was a farmer. He grew all their own food, so I would help him out back in the garden. I would move the hose from trough to trough, and I'd ask him about what's this vegetable and what's that.
Wow. Interesting. Thanks for sharing. I have two last questions for this conversation today. Okay. And my wife and I, we've been asking so many people about their practice of thinking, because we believe that in order for us to have it and, to make some positive change in our lives, it first starts with the way that we think. And, and great people out there, they have to they go through the process of thinking and fine tune it over the years to help them to expand their ability to think. And that's its idea worth learning, sharing with other people. So over the years, Stan, how have you been growing your ability to think?
I'm not sure I've approached it with that particular goal in mind. I'm just continually reading and learning and talking with people and sharing ideas and getting reaction. I'm at a place in my life where I'm not going to start another company. That's off the table. I have the ability to not work if I don't want to. So I want to learn more about my family. I want to spend more time with my grandchild, my daughters and their families, more time with my wife. I want to experience the positives of life at this stage because life is fleeting. But my continual learning is simply because I've never stopped being curious.
Mm, wow. So the last question, so let's use the last question, is about life. Okay. So if you summarize your whole journey and you want to share one last advice in this conversation for our audience about the importance of life, one message that Stan wants them to remember about it, and what would that statement is?
The biggest gift of life is our health. And if we don't feed our mental and physical health needs, then nothing else is going to be of value. If you have your health, then don't be afraid to experience life. Don't be afraid to lose. Don't be afraid to fail at something. I failed at lots of things. And I learned from it and went on. But if you want to experience life fully and you have your health, don't waste it. Go out there and engage with the world. Do things you've never done before. Learn things that you didn't think you were interested in. Stretch your mind to do the things that aren't so easy, because you will only expand your abilities. And finally, life is meant to be playful. Take your work seriously, but don't take yourself seriously.
Thanks a lot for that beautiful advice, and thanks a lot for sharing your stories to our global audience on this conversation. So that's how you stand in the intersection between the organization performance and the employee satisfaction and happiness at work, and build that culture up so that can help the people to have additional pleasure of work and of health, of mental health, and then when they come home and having the dining, conversation at dining table, they share how beauty the work is. They share how beauty leadership is supposed to be, how management is supposed to be. And I think that seed of believing is really important for the next generation going to work with high, they had high, right? And then their commitment on to building something great is really, really high on also. So thanks for doing that. And thanks for spending your afternoon joining and sharing your stories with us. Okay.
You're welcome, Ha. And if you want to read more about this subject, I wrote a book about how WD-40 Company built the engine of positive culture. It's called Engage with an exclamation point. So if your listeners want to dig deeper into how one company actually accomplished a positive place to work and great performance, then they could see how that engine was built in that book.
On Amazon.
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Trafford Publishing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will share that, and I will look for a copy to read about it. Thanks a lot. Okay.
Okay.
So Stan, in this holiday season, I want to say a happy holiday season in advance to you and to your family. Please say hello to the people and tell them that they have a new family, new friend in this beautiful country. And if any of your family members or you and to decide to travel to Vietnam, please let us know, and we would love to take you guys out. Okay.
Absolutely, Ha. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much. You have a beautiful evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.